Hello, so I just moved into a new place and I have no furniture in my room, so that's why I am sitting on the floor. But yes, excited to launch into week 2, which is all about recovering a sense of identity. So it's all about uncovering who you really are and coming back to yourself. So the first concept that Julia talks about is going sane. And basically this is all about trusting our creativity and not allowing ourselves to feel threatened or intimidated. And she uses this term going sane because she says it might feel a little bit like you're going crazy because it's so antithetical to what society is telling us in terms of our ability to pursue art. She tells us to be aware of common self-attacks like, oh yeah, I was able to do it last week, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be successful this week, or I might have written a page, but that doesn't mean I can write a whole chapter. I think this is a huge issue that I run into. I get started and it seems like it's going well, and then I allow myself to just say, oh, but that was a one-time thing, that doesn't mean it can be sustainable, and so oftentimes I start projects and I don't actually finish, as evidenced by the fact that I haven't uploaded a weekly episode of this book club in 2 weeks. She says the most powerful force to use against these self-attacks is affirmation. So for instance, me saying I was able to upload my introduction and the first week's video and it's been going well, and I should still be able to continuously do this. The next concept that Julia talks about are poisonous playmates, and these are often people that might seem like they're good friends, but they're actually weighing you down or holding you back, and it may be because they themselves are blocked artists and aren't ready to move forward yet and become the true artists that they are. And so in seeing your journey, they might actually feel a bit threatened as well. And Julia likens this to a drunk person who might not necessarily be happy about you going into recovery. I think that's an important sort of imagery to keep in your mind when you feel like you're being doubted by the outside world, or that your friends are not necessarily supportive of your creative journey. Then these might just be those poisonous playmates that Julia is talking about. Obviously, it's really easy to latch onto these people and allow them to keep you blocked because it is really scary going out into your own and trying to get better. But you have to be willing to sort of move through this fear and push away the cynicism in order for you to flourish in your creativity and to feel safe. And this brings us to our next point, which is all about safeguarding your artist, where she really talks about how in this stage you should be focusing on yourself and not feeling guilty for leaving other people behind or for being selfish. As an artist, you're gifted with creativity, and it's actually not selfish to actually go and pursue it. Over time, once you keep practicing your creativity, it will actually become easier to create versus not to create. For me personally, I think I'm still in that in-between stage where it is definitely still easier for me to not create. I don't think I have pushed open the floodgates quite yet where I'm ready to create. You know, the moment I wake up, it's still a little bit of a push for me. But again, she talks about sort of surrendering yourself of any creative control and just letting yourself be a channel for creativity, which I think is a really healthy way of looking at it. It's not something that's egotistical, that's saying like, wow, I'm so amazing, I'm so creative, but it's just saying that you're sort of the channel for creativity to flow through. And that also, I think, takes a little bit of the pressure off, because then you're not just like this sole human being that's responsible for the creativity, you're just channeling it. And while creating art, Julia also talks about the importance of surrendering your control of the result. Instead, you should really just be focusing on the practice and enjoying the process rather than only being excited for the final product. And for people who still feel like it's selfish to pursue art, Julia says that your healing is actually the greatest message of hope for other people. So if you can just focus inwardly, work on yourself, work on being happy with creating and becoming a healed artist, that's actually a huge inspiration for other people. So next up, she talks about this concept of crazymakers. These people are similar to poisonous playmates, but I think they're a little less obvious. They seem really charismatic, they seem really bubbly, they seem like they're on your side, but yet they stir up a lot of chaos in your life that distract you from actually focusing on your creativity. I definitely think that I can think of a few people in my life that I would maybe describe as crazy makers. I think it's a little bit difficult because for me personally, I always want to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I really want to think that everyone has good intentions, and I don't want to say that someone is sort of being a crazy maker. But ultimately, you can sort of tell if they are if you realize that they're actually creating more problems than they are creating solutions. And these crazy makers are really a distraction for fixer-uppers, basically people that like to help others. That's definitely me. I'm definitely like the therapist, counselor type. I love trying to help other people, and I've realized that it is to my detriment. I allow it to be a distracting tool, trying to help other people in their lives rather than focusing on my life, rather than focusing on my writing and the other creative projects that I want to work on. So if you find yourself spending time with people that cause you to break your schedule, to lose productivity, then maybe it's time to take a step back and not, give them so much of your energy. And also, these crazy makers are often blocked creatives as well. So in that sense, when I think of them as blocked creatives, I'm really able to sympathize with them, and I don't fault them for the way that they're acting, but at the same time, I really want to stay away and just sort of create my own little safe bubble for myself to be able to create. So after we've pushed away these poisonous playmates and the crazy makers, what remains is still our own skepticism about our ability to produce art and to be creative. And these are sort of the secret doubts that linger in our heads that we might not even be conscious of, but Julia talks about how it's really important to air them out and to acknowledge them in order to overcome them. And she does say that self-nurturing is really scary, but we need to do it in order to stop sabotaging ourselves. And she gives an example of this guy who works at a firm and decides that he wants to get into filmmaking, and he actually gets into a program that his company is paying for him to be part of. And 2 weeks in, he tells himself this narrative that he's actually just wasting his time, that his dream of being a filmmaker is actually distracting him from getting a real job, and he quits the program. So that's really an example of a high level of self-doubt and skepticism that is sabotaging him from fulfilling his dreams when he's already, a step in the right direction. Now he's taking a couple steps back. So I think it's important to examine times in our lives where we are working towards where we want to go, and then the self-doubt creeps in, and then we are unable to fulfill our own dreams because of our own self-doubt. So those are some of the concepts that Julia talks about in terms of being able to recover a sense of identity, and she leaves us with 10 rules for the road. She says, in order to be an artist, I must, 1, show up on the page and show up for myself. So this basically just means being consistent, always delivering work, whether it's good or bad, just sort of, again, taking care of the quantity aspect and letting the quality come later. The second one is to fill the well by caring for your artist. So I think this consists of, generally just taking care of your mental, physical, emotional health, and then also taking yourself on those artist dates in order to continuously be inspired. The third one is to set small and gentle goals and actually be able to meet them. I think this one's really important. I actually set goals for myself on a monthly and a weekly basis, but my biggest problem is not actually meeting them. So I think I really need to be more intentional about showing up for myself, setting actionable goals that I'm actually going to be able to meet. The fourth one is to pray for guidance, humility, and courage. I think these are really important aspects of any creative journey. To be able to stay humble, to have the courage to actually pursue your art, and also having the guidance to get to where you want to go. And number 5 is to remember that it's actually much harder to be a blocked artist than someone who is unblocked. So I think that this is something, again, that I definitely need to work on. I think I just oftentimes ignore my creative desires and just don't do anything because I tell myself that it's easier, but I think it does, in a sense, weigh me down. And so just pushing through and realizing that it's just easier to do the thing and become unblocked is a seriously big learning lesson for me. Number 6 is to always be alert of the great creator that's always there to guide you and assist you. I think, again, this is really important in realizing that being an artist it's not all just coming from you. There is this greater force that is working through you, and I think that relieves you of some of the pressure to feel like you have to be the person that's coming up with everything. Just believing that there is an external force out there that is helping you out as long as you show up. And number 7 is to find companions that help you do the work, not just talk about doing the work or why you aren't doing the work. I think I'm slowly finding those people in my life. I definitely have a lot of people where we do a lot of talking and there's not much action, but finding friends that are able to hold you accountable, that are also doing their own creative thing, that might need a little push in their journey as well can be really healthy and is actually vital for a recovering artist. Number 8 is remembering that the great creator loves creativity. So again, this is similar to another point from before. Number 9, which I feel is really, really crucial, is to remember that our job is to do the work, not to judge the work. So again, honing in this concept of just showing up and doing the work and letting the quality come later. I think this is a huge one that I still struggle with. I still want to just focus on being able to push out content, to create things, and then be able to look back and reflect on it later and improve upon it, rather than being so self-critical and having such a perfectionist mindset that I don't create anything at all. I don't want to do that. And number 10, to really wrap things up, is to place a sign somewhere in your workplace that says, "Creator, I will take care of the quantity and you take care of the quality." So I haven't done that quite yet. Maybe I will just write up a little sign and post it up here or somewhere, since I have a lot of blank space on my wall, and just have that serve as a constant reminder for me. So I'm not going to go through all the tasks, but I think I'll just point out a couple that were kind of helpful for me. So the first one being number 2, which asks you to list the 5 major activities of the week. So for me, the first would be my job. The second one would be social media, like just being on Facebook and Twitter. And then another one I would count separately as YouTube, because I just spend so much time scrolling and browsing through random videos, really unintentionally just watching whatever's out there. Number 4 is eating, obviously, and number 5 is sleeping. I think obviously a lot of those are just essential to life, but I also realize in making this list that I'm not really finding time to do other things. There's definitely a lot more time that I could be dedicating to other things outside of Facebook and YouTube that could help, push those towards the bottom of the list or push them out of the list, so that I'm spending more time doing the things that really fulfill me creatively. So I think that was sort of important to analyze. And then number 8 was to make a list of 10 tiny changes that you want to make. So I thought this was really powerful in sort of remembering that you don't have to do these huge things to make a change in your life. Obviously, I just had a really big change moving to a new apartment, but one of the sort of tiny changes that I made within it was that I bought shower curtains and I hung them up, and that to me felt like a really huge accomplishment. So I think breaking up sort of some of the bigger goals into smaller tasks that you can accomplish can feel really motivating. So yeah, that's pretty much all that I wanted to cover in this chapter. And then again, going into sort of the weekly check-ins, I actually was able to do 7 out of the 7 morning pages for this week. I did end up actually just chopping some of them down and just doing 1 page per day because I was really busy. But I do think because my pages are so large in this notebook that I cut myself a little bit of slack, and then today I actually did a full 3 pages. So I definitely do notice a difference between 1 page versus 3 pages. I feel like with the full 3 pages, I'm really able to let my mind go and wander into wherever it wants to go and sort of address some of the things in the back of my mind, versus just the 1 page is sort of just the things that are really at the top of my mind. So I'm not really able to let all of it go. But at the same time, doing 1 page is definitely more effective than not doing any pages at all. So if you know that you're going to have a busier week or just a busier couple of days, at least try to commit to doing 1 page. Honestly, I think I could have pushed myself to do 3 full pages every day. I just got a little bit lazy. So hopefully next week I'll do better. And then in terms of my artist date, I went to a comedy show, which was really fun. I had a lot of friends that were there separately and I met up with them afterwards, but it was really nice to just be sitting in my own space and just sort of focusing on the performers. And the last check-in question is about any issues that were significant towards your recovery. I would say that moving to a new apartment was definitely a big change. I definitely allowed it to take up a lot of my mental, physical energy. It was just something to be aware of. I think that when I go through a big change, I don't want to be too hard on myself, but I also don't want to allow it to be an excuse for me not creating or not doing my art. So yeah, that sums up week 2 of The Artist's Way. I will try to do week 3 actually within the next week so that I can be a little bit more consistent. But yeah, if you're watching this, leave a comment below about the most significant thing that you learned in week 2 about recovering a sense of identity, or maybe leave a suggestion for an artist date. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.